Hello, my name is Rishti Shastri, and I will be presenting techniques for requirement elicitation by Dr. Joseph Gogwin and Dr. Charlotte Lind. So here is the information about the paper and the authors. Dr. Joseph was a professor at University of California and University of Oxford. He completed his PhD in mathematics from University of California. Dr. Charlotte is a senior research scientist in Computational Sciences Division of NASA Ames Research Center. The paper was published in 1993 in a conference proceedings of IEEE International Symposium on Requirements Engineering, and the paper has been cited for 50 times. The paper is trying to address three research questions. First, how to understand what users really want. Second, what are the differences between various requirement elicitation techniques? Third, how these different techniques of eliciting requirements deal with social issues. The motivation behind the paper is, first, to understand what users really want, like what are their expectations. Second, to understand why requirement plays important role in every project. Third, to compare various requirement elicitation techniques, such as traditional techniques and techniques from discourse analysis, and many more. Fourth, to put significant efforts in elicitation techniques because projects may fail because of insufficient requirements. It is also explained that once the need is expressed and initial plan is developed, then the requirements team tries to identify what properties the system should have to meet that need. The problem of requirement elicitation cannot be solved purely in technological way because social context is much more crucial in programming. Social order can only be determined by immersion in actual unfolding of social phenomena because according to paper the social world is ordered and the social order may not be immediately obvious by common sense and cannot be used to have a priori structure. Many requirement methods that are available in marketplace does not have scientific basis at all. And this paper began to explore a scientific basis for requirement elicitation by considering the basic issue of how to acquire necessary information. Introspection is most common source of information, but it can be misleading sometimes. Interviews, questionnaires, and protocol analysis are also useful, but conversation, interaction, and discourse analysis are more detailed, precise, and accurate. The first and the most obvious method for requirement elicitation is introspection. The main focus of this method is to try to understand what properties a system should have in order to succeed. So basically, this technique requires an analyst to develop requirements based on what he or she believes the users want from the system. But there are some problems with this method, like it is unlikely to reflect the experience of actual users. Also, the requirement engineers cannot introspect what work settings look like or the condition under which the new technology will be learned. So this introspection method is bit inappropriate method as declared by current psychologist. It is suggested that if there is a place for doubt, then this method should be checked by other empirical methods, which we will be discussing in remaining presentation. Interviews are probably the most traditional, common, and quite successful technique for requirement elicitation. First, questionnaire interviews. These are usually done in the early stages of requirement elicitation and it uses statistical analysis. Also, specific attention should be paid to possibility because the category and the concepts that are transparent to one community can be entirely opaque to the members of other community. Second, open-ended interviews. It avoids some of the problems of questionnaire method and also fulfills the original interview objective, but it is not practical if finely detailed data is needed. Third, focus and application development groups. It is a kind of group interview and it allows more natural interaction as compared to the questionnaire and the open-ended interviews. However, there are some potential limitations of this method which need to be addressed. Protocol analysis is where participants engage in an activity and concurrently talk aloud, explaining their thought process. This technique is used to collect and analyze the thought process by an individual problem solver. The two main arguments for talk aloud protocol are first, that they are possible, and second, that they work. The first argument must overcome the arguments in psychology about the method of introspection, and the second argument is based on the success of general problem solver. Protocols are unnatural discourse form and are also unnatural in ways that are difficult to specify. Moreover, protocol analysis is based on simplistic cognitivist model of human thinking. The methods which are discussed so far all impose an analyst order on social world with no guarantee that this is the same as the order that members perceive. There are some of the premises that underline ethno-methodology. First, natural setting. It is important to study natural setting to understand social order. It is possible that we may not get well-grounded results on situation that experiment was intended to explain because we don't know what setting the participants think they are in. Second, member categories. It is one of the important notion that underlines the analysis of social order. The idea here is to find the categories that members use to order their social world rather than to impose an analyst order on it. Third, member methods. It was assumed that social science methods differ from those used by people studied. This assumption was challenged by ethnomethodology and argued that social scientists employ same kind of sense-making activities as member of culture studied. Discourse analysis is broadly used to describe the study of structures larger than the sentence. First, conversation analysis. Here, the conversation is that interactional system in which the order of interaction is negotiated in real time as the conversation proceeds. Turn-taking is basic system for creating social order within conversation, and adjacency pairs are partially semantic and partially syntactic organizational structures. Second, discourse units. It is another approach within linguistics which is necessary for requirement elicitation, and it has two criterial properties. First is defined boundaries, and second is describable internal structure. Third, reproducing social order. It is very essential issue for requirement engineering because it is necessary to consider the effect of a new system. We have discussed so many requirement elicitation methods. So every method has some limitations. Like questionnaire-based interview are limited by stimulus-response model of interaction. Open-ended interviews is limited by need for participants to share basic concepts of and methods. Protocol analysis ignores social context. Conversation, discourse, and interaction analysis are labor-intensive. Some of the methods cannot elicit tactic knowledge, while others can. Despite of all the limitations, strength of these methods seem to some extent complementary, so that combination of various methods can be applied to particular problem. In this paper, the authors recommended zooming method for requirement elicitation. This method is expensive and requires careful preparation to ensure that exact thing is examined. And if this zooming method is included in all the methods, then it can also be used for studying system development process. The paper described some research tasks that can contribute to future investigation. First, detailed empirical study of entire system can be done, which will include the role planning, management, and phases. Second, case studies can be done to determine the role of political considerations in requirement engineering. Third, case studies to determine the limitation and strength of JAD groups. Fourth, working out the guidelines of Zoom method and trying it in some case studies. And fifth, detailed empirical studies of comparative effectiveness of various commercial methods and tools for various purposes. The thing which I liked about this paper is that it explained why requirement elicitation is important and why it is the most basic phase of every process. Also, detailed explanation of methods of eliciting requirements is given and how they deal with social issues. In conclusion part, a new method is also recommended by authors, which can also be used to study system development process.